bucka. Ha. You know the deal.
The first thing we're going to talk about in patterning are called linear number patterns. And the first question you're probably going to ask yourself is, what is a linear number pattern? Well, a linear number pattern is one that starts at a certain number, and the first number is called the first term, and it increases or decreases by the same value each time. So the first example here we'll look at is a linear number pattern, and it does start at a certain number, and that certain number is 1. So here in this case the first term is 1, and then the next term is 3, and then 5, and then 7, and the dot 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 there indicates that the pattern does continue. So as described in what a linear number pattern is, it increases or decreases by the same value each time. In this case, we can see that it's increasing by 2. So if we wanted to continue this pattern beyond what we have here, one way to do that would be to continue adding 2. So after the 7, if we added 2 to that, the next number would be 9, and then 11, and then 13, and so on. So in our second example here, we can see that our first term is 100. Our second term is 90, and then third term is 80, and then 70. So we can see that in this case we're not increasing, but we're decreasing. So each value is going down by 10 in this case. So our number pattern here is starting at 100, or our first term is 100, and then decreasing by 10. So one way to continue that number pattern would be to continue subtracting 10. So our next value would be 60, and then 50, and then so on. So when you're asked to describe and extend linear number patterns, there are essentially 3 questions you want to ask yourself. The first question is, what is the first term, which is the first number that appears in the number pattern? The second question you want to ask yourself is the pattern increasing or decreasing? So are the numbers getting bigger, or are the numbers getting smaller? And finally, you want to ask yourself, well, how much are they increasing or decreasing each time? So let's look at a couple of examples where we'll answer these 3 questions. So looking at our first pattern we have here, we're going to answer this first question, what is the first term? And the first term is the first number that appears in our number pattern. And in this case, the first term is 7. The next question we ask ourselves is the pattern increasing or decreasing? Well, to go from 7 to 11, it has to get bigger. So in this case, it's increasing. And then finally, we ask ourselves, well, how much is it increasing by each time? Well, to get from 7 to 11, we have to add 4. And we should double check just to make sure that's correct. 11 plus 4 is 15, and 15 plus 4 is 19. So in this case, it's increasing by 4. So here's another example of a linear number pattern. And again, we'll answer these 3 key questions here. The first question is, what is the first term? Well, the first number that appears in our number pattern here is 1,000. So our first term is 1,000. Next, the question asks, is the pattern increasing or decreasing? Well, to go from 1,000 to 900, we're going lower. Our values are getting smaller here. So in this case, it's decreasing. And finally, we have to ask ourselves, well, how much is it decreasing by each time? To get from 1,000 to 900, we have to subtract 100. And again, we'll just double check to make sure that that's right. If we calculate 900 minus 100, it does equal 800. So that gives us the next number in our number pattern. And 800 minus 100 is 700. So it's decreasing by 100 each time. So to finish off our lesson on linear number patterns, I'm going to get you to answer a few questions here. And for each one of these questions, I want you to answer those 3 questions. So for number 1, 2, 3, and 4, state what the first term is. State whether the pattern is increasing or decreasing. And finally, if it's increasing or decreasing, by how much each time. If you're able to answer those 3 questions for each one of these linear number patterns, congratulations, you now have a firm understanding of linear number patterns.